Stand by. We're going live. We're going live. 10, 9, going live. 7, 6, 5, going live. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome to 10 Seconds to Air, where I talk to world-class communicators from every profession about how they connect their work with all of us and get any tips from them that will inspire us to communicate better in our own lives and in our work. Okay, on to today's guest. You know him very well. He is a master communicator. He is a Primetime Emmy Award-winning actor who has been entertaining us through dozens of characters for years. How does he do it? And what goes through his mind before he takes on these roles and steals our hearts? Well, he's about to tell us. You know him from so many movies and shows. I'll name just a few, and then you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. The Mysterious Benedict Society, Toy Story 4, Arrested Development, Veep, and how about that Super Bowl commercial with Beyonce? That's right, Tony Hale is here to tell us about his new projects and what's happening from the inside that allows him to connect with all of us. Tony, you have been everywhere. You are all over the map right now.
It's so funny because like when, as an actor, many times they'll release your work, even though you kind of did it over the course of a long time. Sometimes it'll all come at once and it looks like, oh my God, you're
okay.
like working all the time. But it's like, it's such a, after having done this for 25 years, it's just so random when they release it. Cause I know, but like, you know, it'd be like 2 or 3 months will go by, but sometimes when you're not working, but then they'll release all the time, like, Tony, you're like, really?
Right.
You know, it's such a weird business that way.
So to us, it feels like you're everywhere.
Yes.
And to you, you're like, whoa,
it's just like a freelancer. You're just kind of gigs come, gigs go, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, before I get to the first question, I have to get to the first question, the elephant in the room, the Beyonce commercial.
Beyonce, the typical combination, me and Beyonce.
Who would have thought?
Oh, everyone. It's the obvious mashup.
It is obvious. So obvious.
Yeah. It was wild. I do remember getting the call from my agent being like, you know, they're interested in you for a Verizon spot. And I was like, great, that's so fun. Because I used to do commercials years and years ago in New York, and I had such a great time doing it. And then they said, you know, it's with a high profile client. And I was like, oh, that's fun. And then they said Beyonce, and I was like, I'm sorry.
Say that again.
And she was lovely, man. Like she was so cool, and you know, she's iconic, obviously. But you know, sometimes you don't know what they're going to be like, and she just could not have been kinder and humble, and obviously very talented. And you know, then comes along me, the little quirky sidekick. hey, B.
So what was that like when you first met her?
We were, Martell, who you know, my wife.
Yes.
We were on set because Martell, my wife's a makeup artist. And so she did my makeup for the shoot. And we just kind of showed up, and it was on the Universal lot. And I mean, when you know, it's Beyonce, so it's quite a production. And for those who've seen the commercial, they just did a beautiful job with everything, and it looks fantastic. But it's like it's a full show, and they had her for a day. And then I came back the next day to do kind of my reaction shots. So she had 9, I think it was like 7 or 9 costume changes in a day.
Wow.
And that's also hair and makeup and everything like that. And I met her, and she was great and so nice. And then I just I was in the same outfit all day. So I was just standing around like eating craft service the whole time. And she was just this like tornado of just, you know, she had such a great attitude the whole day. And I mean, and also I kind of thought about it that, you know, she's on tour all the time, and she has so many costume changes. So her team is so good about like getting her ready so quickly. But I mean, for those of you in the business, like 9 costume changes, you know, hair and makeup in a day is very ambitious. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. So what did you take away? Sounds like you might have, you were there with open eyes.
I took away that my team is like not nearly what it needs to be.
Come on, team,
I
get
do
going.
not look as good as that. There's not a lot to work with, but my gosh.
Yeah, what your daughter must have been.
Well, she didn't.
Over the moon.
Yeah, she. That was kind of the hard part. is she had just been to Beyonce's concert, and she went with her friend Lola, and she was a massive fan. And then her and I just saw the movie because she says, Dad, I want you to see the movie. And so we went to see the movie together. And then I did this commercial, and Martell and I signed an NDA, so we couldn't say anything. So I couldn't even tell Loy.
Tell her.
And that was the heartbreak. And I think she said, what are you guys doing this weekend? And I said, oh, we're shooting like, what did I say? I said, we're doing like a, what are they called? Like an informational video for some tech company. Oh yeah, like a PSA kind of a thing for like a tech company. And she was like, all right, who cares?
Whatever. You're so uninteresting, Dad. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they released these teasers, these kind of like, before it came out, of like me in front of a lemonade stand and me with the glittery horse. Renee is her name. And then my daughter saw the lemonade stand, and at first she was like, oh, that's interesting. And then her friend was like, that song in the background is Beyonce's song, Lemonade. And all I got in my text was, Dad. And she just started freaking out, and she figured out, because nowadays they know all the coding. Like she's a big Taylor Swift fan, and it's all about the coding. Like I went to go see the Taylor Swift movie with her, and I remember noticing that Taylor Swift had like a chipped blue nail. Her nail polish was chipped, the blue nail. And I remember looking at the movie and thinking, that's odd. Like, talk about a team. Like, someone's not noticing that her nails are chipped. Surely they could paint them better. And then I told Loy, I said, that's interesting that and she said, no, Dad, that means something. That has something to do with her next album coming out. Oh. And then at the premiere of her movie, she's wearing a light blue dress that has like cuts in it. And it was all connected. Oh. And I'm like, these people are brilliant. Yeah, like just all the coding and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and they pay attention, like the kids, the teenagers, they pay attention to all those details. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like our generation, we're sort of like, this is it. I'm serving it up, and that's it. Their generation is like, they're so
it's like its own little
detail.
Escape room. They're trying to figure out, which I'm very not good at.
So you went to a new planet with her. You're like, Dad, you're way cool now. Now you're I don't know what you did before, but this.
Then she just couldn't stop talking about it. And it was, I kind of wanted the moment though for her to see it for the first time at the Super Bowl, but because of the teasers, she got it early and all that stuff.
She got it early.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to get to the first question, which I had asked you about when I told you about the podcast.
Oh,
and
yes,
I said,
yes.
And you immediately knew what you wanted to say.
Okay.
So what goes through your mind? 10 seconds to air.
10 seconds to air. It's changed. Okay. I think this is probably what I want to say. It's changed. It used to be complete panic.
Okay.
I remember there was so I've dealt with anxiety in my life for a long time, and I remember, and I've been through way too much therapy, and I started getting into cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a lot about not being such a victim to your thoughts and your feelings, but being a little more of an observer to your thoughts and your feelings. And so when I used to, years ago, 10 seconds before air or 10 seconds before going on, I would just get in this frantic state and try to talk myself down and, all that, just do whatever it takes, just almost survival, just kind of get through it. And then I started getting into that. And I remember once I was about to do Conan, and the curtains were about to open, and there was two guys, and I had this wave of panic come up from me, kind of like almost like a panic attack was coming. And I remember thinking, I have two choices. I can either do this or I can bolt. And I remember the thinking of like, there was two guys there, and I just started asking these guys questions. And I said, oh, where are you guys from? How long have you been doing this? Oh my gosh, they should do a documentary back here about what goes on behind the curtain. And, do you have a good time doing it? And I got my eyes off myself and got them on somebody else, because in my mind, the panic was happening. So I got my minds off myself, curtains open, and I stepped out. And so that was one thing I did. And then I remember I did this play in San Francisco called Wakey Wakey. And it was a one-man play. And I remember having these thoughts like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a panic attack in front of 1,000 people every night. It's just these kind of like thoughts. And then through this therapy, one thing I started to do was, where I used to try to push these feelings away, it only made them bigger. And then this therapist, who I'm very grateful for, started talking about just having compassion towards these feelings and these panic feelings. And so rather than kind of pushing them away when a fearful thought came in, or like, this is going to happen, and you start what ifing, you start saying to it, hey, I know you're trying to help me and I really appreciate it. I'm going to go do this, but thank you for being here and I'll be right back.
Oh, wow.
And so having that compassion towards that feeling, it just kind of took out the power. And then I did the job and came back. And it's not like it doesn't come back and you'll see it, but it's more of like, oh yeah, there you are again. I thought you would be here. Those thoughts, those
Nice
feelings.
to see
Nice
you.
to see you. I know you're trying to help me and I really appreciate it. I'm going to be back. I'm going to do it, but I really appreciate it. And it just kind of changed the framework around it.
And do you get back to it after Conan or after whatever it is that you're going to do? Do you go back and deal with that?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's not a bad idea to kind of be like, hey, I'm back. Thanks for trying to help, or maybe having, because afterward there's kind of more of that relief of like, oh, I did it, and
Yeah.
So I've always used it as kind of a pre-thing, but that's interesting. Maybe I should go back and be like, hey, I see you again, and good job.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was okay. So you
Yeah,
you don't need to bother me next time. We can leave that at home.
Yeah, or I might see you, and if you are, we'll have
Yeah.
the same conversation. But it just kind of takes the air out of the balloon a lot for me.
Interesting, because you are out in front so much.
Right.
And what is it do you think you're thinking of? What is the panic that's coming? What might happen,
Yeah, I think I know that it probably triggers, in teenage young insecurity stuff.
Right.
That feeling of the actor's nightmare of you're on stage and you're naked, or you forgot your lines, or which is, get to the root of it, shame based.
Yeah.
You don't want to make a fool of yourself. You don't want to be made fun of. Just those eyes on you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all that. I think it's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can relate to that because in my TV days of doing the news, you really rely on this teleprompter.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if that teleprompter goes out, sometimes scripts haven't come, things are changing all the time.
Yeah.
So you're really talking about being in a hot seat. You're in a hot seat.
Yeah.
I didn't have that kind of anxiety then, but for some reason now or much later, I have this reoccurring dream that I get out there, that everything's changed.
Yeah.
I have no scripts.
Yes.
And there is no teleprompter.
Yeah. That's
And
the
it's
same
like,
actor's nightmare right there.
What do you
Forget
do?
the lines,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's something about left to my own devices is not going to be enough. There's something about like not trusting myself, because obviously you kicked in.
Yeah.
And you
I
figured something
never
out
happened. Never
yeah.
actually happened.
And my natural will kick in, but there's that fear that this is not something I can trust.
So how did you get started in acting?
I was an Army brat, and we moved 7 times before I was in the 7th grade. And then in the 7th grade, my dad retired the military. We moved to Tallahassee, Florida. It was in the South. This may be shocking, I'm not an athletic kid. I was not a big
You played
athlete.
pickleball.
I played pickleball,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah,
All right,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that's athletic or not. It's still out.
All of a sudden, the pickleball community starts revolt. So I was not an athletic kid. My brother was. So in the South, sports and football is just such
really
a
big.
cultural. It's like its own religion, and so I didn't really kind of felt lost. And my parents found this little theater called Young Actors Theater in Tallahassee, Florida, and my neighbor, because of our neighbor Mimi, and signed me up, and it was like a place that I felt seen. I could be silly. There was just kind of this click that happened with me. And I keep saying I think, but I know that this is why I'm such an advocate for arts education, because even if you don't go into the field like I have, there are certain personalities that need that environment to thrive.
Right.
Like they need that environment to feel seen. And it's not, a one formula equation for everybody. And I was one of those kids. So I just loved it. I loved making people laugh. But when I went to college, I didn't know if I could make a career out of it. So I studied journalism. And
Another thing you might not be able to make a career out of.
Well, nowadays, I don't even know what they tell journalism students, because when we were kids, It was like newspapers, and or ad agencies are still around, but it was like there was like print, and you get those jobs, and there was one source or maybe 5 top sources, and now obviously it's the wild wild west out there. So I don't know
and
how
you had
what they
a
tell them.
criteria that you had to follow, and this is how you checked facts. And you were sort of, now I don't know what happens there.
And I will say, like, even though I didn't go into journalism, I am so grateful for studying that, because it really taught me the power of editing. Because nowadays I look at a script, or if I'm writing, I know how to cut the fat out. It's like, no, what's the point? Where's the joke? What, we don't need this. We've already said this. And I remember that being drilled in me in journalism. Like, you've already said that. Get to the point. What's the point? Anyways, so I studied journalism, and then after college, I said, I'm going to dip my toe back into acting. Moved to New York in '95 and didn't know anybody. And my first play was Shakespeare in the Parking Lot, that we did Taming of the Shrew in a parking lot in the East Village.
But in a parking
lot in the East Village. And
hopefully it was summer or
it was summer.
Fall. Okay.
And it was down on Ludlow Street. And I just started had so many jobs, like cater waitering and temping and all this stuff, and then started doing commercials. And my type at the time, you're kind of given a type, was the guy who's not all there. Kind of checked out. And I was even described one that says David Schwimmer, but not as good looking.
Oh, how funny.
And I just was the quirky guy and loved it. And then obviously that hasn't changed. I'm still the quirky guy. But just, from then on, just kind of fell into it. Yeah.
So the characters that you talked about quirky, the characters are all really quirky.
It's kind of wild. Like, they're all quirky, but they're different versions of quirky. Like Buster Bluth on Arrested is actually, I think, just kind of a cartoon character. Like, he's completely disassociated. And then someone like Gary on Veep is nervous and quirky, but still can step up to the plate a little bit and help people. Whereas Buster was just, it would be a good day if he got to the pharmacy. It's like Gary can like step up and do stuff.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of like, it's fun to kind of play with that range, and then thankfully also doing other things that are a little more much different and all that stuff.
So how do you I call you a master communicator.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if you think of yourself like that.
I don't see myself like that.
You are, because you are communicating and connecting with an audience. You have got to be able to communicate to do that.
Yeah, you kind of learn. That's a good point. Like I was talking to some students actually the other night, and I was saying how I think going through hard things and suffering in our society gets a bad rap. Meaning, obviously, there's awful suffering out there, but it's wild to see how suffering kind of makes you who you are. Like we've both been through tough times. I've been through tough times in my life. I had, family stuff. But even though it's hard, I learn an empathy because of it. I learn how to see people differently and meet people where they are differently. I actually struggled with anxiety, which was not my favorite thing as a kid. But then I'm able to tap into an anxious character, maybe unlike somebody else might be able to. So it's wild how that kind of has a full circle moment to it.
So there are pieces of you in these characters.
Totally.
Definitely.
And that is a part of it. Like I like talking about this too, like getting into character. I did a movie a long time ago, and there was this character that was kind of just, I was playing this guy who was kind of a douchebag, and he kind of manipulated people, and I just didn't really like him. And I remember going to this acting teacher, and I said, I don't like this guy, and it's like, I don't like people like this. I don't really want to play him. And she says, Tony, you have to realize that person's inside of you. And she's right, because the fact is, I've been manipulative in my life. I've been a bit of a douchebag. I'm not proud of it, but I have. I've had arrogant moments. And the more that you see it in yourself, you're not necessarily playing an idea of a character. You're finding it within yourself. And I think because of that, you'll give the most authentic representation of that character as you can. And what's also true about that is what a lesson in life, because I think about people in my life that have been hard, whatever, and I don't like. But then I think about them and I go, oh, what is it I don't like about them? Oh, they have like an entitled part about them, or I just don't, they kind of seem unkind. And then the truth is, I've had entitled moments in my life. There are points I haven't been kind to people. So when I can see that in myself, it draws a bridge with people rather than the judgment. Because the whole lesson with acting is you just cannot judge your own character. You have to have compassion on your character, because that's when you're going to find them in yourself.
So you're finding it in yourself and then making that connection with the people in the audience.
Making that connect, because I think when I find it in myself and I bring it out of myself, that's when somebody in the audience is going to connect with it. Because I'm not almost putting on a character, cookie cutter idea.
Yeah.
I'm taking it out of myself, and then it's like, then I think that's when an audience resonates the most with it.
Yeah. So talk about the Gary character for a second.
Yeah.
How much of that is on script, and then how much of it is you bringing something else to that character that develops over the course of the several seasons?
Yeah, I mean, he was written as kind of a sycophant and a lapdog, and adored her. And then, it's the kind of thing where this is what's so fun about being on a TV show, because you have the time for something to evolve if it keeps going. Whereas on a standalone thing like a movie or not a theater, but mainly a movie or something, you don't have that kind of time necessarily. So Gary evolved, and the writers will see kind of what I'm bringing to it, and then kind of write to that direction, And so I not to get blunt, but was addiction in my family growing up. And so I know how, codependency is something that I'm very familiar with, and something I've worked on in myself. But just because I've worked on it, I can also tap into that, taking care of people and fixing people and feeling like it's my responsibility when it's not my responsibility. And Selena, she was my responsibility. Her happiness was my happiness. If she was not happy, I was not happy. And it's like, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So things like that, it comes out of me, and then it's kind of directed in a way throughout the season.
So it does evolve as the seasons go on.
Yeah.
Putting your own stamp on it.
Yeah.
So one thing that I love when I watch you perform, or when I watch your characters, is you have such great facial expression. I'm sure you've heard that before, right?
Yeah.
So talk for a minute about the use of your face and body, because a lot of people who perform or have to do something at work and they get up there, I work with these people, and they sort of leave that behind. They don't think about the face, and they don't think about what their body can do. They're very focused on what's on the page. How do you bring all of that to the character and to the audience?
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of Veep, he was so not allowed to talk that he was literally called a bitchy mime. He was
called a what?
A bitchy mime.
And what is that? Is that a terminology in acting?
No, it's like what I think Selena called me a bitchy mime, because I would stand behind him and just do these facial expressions,
which are awesome.
She didn't let me talk, so that was my only way of communication. It wasn't
written. It wasn't written.
There were times when they would just say Tony gives a reaction, or just because my character, for me to speak up was very, I did, but it was very rare, because she was the person out front. And the best part though is, if she didn't like somebody that she was talking to, and I didn't like him, she couldn't say it, but my face could say it.
Right.
So I could be behind her being like, this guy's an ass, in the face. But in terms of the nonverbal, we grew up with, Tim Conway from Carol Burnett's show, Bob Newhart. Specifically Bob Newhart. Tim Conway's more the physical, his physical, the mastery he had over his body with comedy was, obviously we all know that sketch of him as in the dentist office with Harvey Korman, and he makes his whole body numb from the equipment without. It was supposed to make the patient. Now all this, it's just masterful. It's masterful.
Yeah.
So his was like a dance that he played with his body, which I just was obsessed with. Whereas Bob Newhart, he had a different mastery with his body, because he would stand there and the smallest gesture in his face you could read. So his tension and discomfort in his body by just raising an eyebrow or looking to the right and to the left and doing hardly anything. But the power of those small gestures, I was like, that's crazy. that's crazy. So I really, those two guys I just studied, and not studies, not the right, I don't like that word because I feel like it was intentional, but I was more just enamored with them, you know,
observing them
and not realizing I was studying them,
right,
you know.
Right.
And so I think just it kind of taught me the power of the physicality and the power without saying any words, you know. And I think just naturally, and just like being on stage and doing something and then looking to the right with your and seeing the reaction of just that small eye movement or the small gesture, the power of that is sometimes so much more powerful than giving a monologue or a speech or whatever.
Yeah, it's amazing how people sort of in their normal life don't really think about how powerful that is, or that it can be. Which brings me to, you do a lot of work without your face and your body, where you're doing voiceovers. In fact, Inside Out 2 is coming, right?
Yeah. But I want to say this really quick before we get off topic, because I think you have this, and also I think someone like Katie Couric has this, where it stands out when somebody has an empathy in their face. Because you, in your line of work or journalism, when you did that so much, if somebody did have kind of a stoic, mechanical presence to them, it was tough to engage in them watching it, you know. But you or Katie Couric or someone that has more of a humanity to them, it was just like bees to honey. Like it was just, people were drawn to that. And it does have power wherever.
Well, thanks.
You know, seriously though. But yeah, so with Inside Out, with voice work, ironically, I used to have a tremendous amount of insecurity when it came to my voice, because I had kind of a high voice, and it wasn't that kind of Southern good old boy, you know, like rough stuff. And I had a high voice. I was kind of quirky and, you know, loud laugh and all this stuff. And again, to see how it's kind of used in my career, I love animation. I think it's a place where you're just in a booth and you just act, especially children's animation, because there's the simplicity and the freedom to just go completely off the rails, you know, and because that's what kids, the silliness, and just you let loose. I mean, that's just, you play really evil or really like quirky and loud and nervous, and you know, I'm doing fear and Inside Out, and just screaming the whole time and pratfalls, and it's just, and a big lesson I learned with voice work is I used to be very nervous because all they heard was the voice, because I was a guy that relied on my physicality and the face and all that stuff, and I was like, oh my God, they're only getting this. But then I realized, I have to do the whole performance in front of the mic. You know, it's not like I have to stand still. And so I just started doing the same thing I would do on stage or in front of a camera, in front of the mic, because then that energy would then be transferred into the mic, and that's when it turned for me.
So you really are doing all of that.
Fully, like just silly, and to the point where the sound engineer many times has to say, Tony, you got to stay close to the mic, because I'll just like go all over the place.
You're just
and
using
they're like,
the room.
Tone, you got to like, you got to stay close.
So you play, let's talk about Inside Out. There's such a, Inside Out 2, such a great movie. Inside Out 1 was such a great movie. Riley, the main character, the girl, is now a teenager, right? So fear in a teenager, and we talked about having anxiety, and where does it come from? Probably my teenage years and whatnot. So what is this experience now as fear in this teenage girl? It's
man, it's so layered, and that's what Pixar does so beautifully. Because for the first movie there was the 5 main ones, and then now that she's a teenager, these other ones, anxiety, embarrassment, ennui, envy, start to take over. And then the main emotions are kind of pushed to the side, to where I actually in the trailer say, now we're suppressed emotions, because it's all about anxiety, it's all about embarrassment, it's all about ennui. But the base of it, those 5 emotions are still there, but they're not as paid. They don't have the front seat anymore.
Yeah, not prominent.
But the thing is, like for all of us, you know, I think those 5 emotions many times are the things that, you know, something plays out, but in actuality, I'm just afraid. you know, or in actuality, I'm just sad, you know, but I cover it with other different things, you know, but the base is, what do we really want to say? Like, so somebody be really envious, or somebody, like, say somebody's really envious of something. The sad thing is, the true is, maybe someone's just sad about not getting something, but they don't want to say that. They want to be like, oh, look what they have, and they cover it up with something, you know. Or fear. I'm afraid I'm not going to have something, so I'm going to be envious of somebody else. You know, it's like, it's interesting, again, how Pixar has just kind of layered it with being a teenager. I really, really wish that this movie was out when my daughter was a teenager, because it's going to be just not just a fantastic tool for adults, but for teenagers to feel seen. You know, it's like, oh, I'm not crazy for wanting to lay on the couch all day and look at my phone or be bored, or if I'm super embarrassed or I'm really anxious, just to feel like, yeah, that's me. The puberty has completely taken over.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Fear, it's interesting that you talk about all these different layers, because I want to ask you if you think that over time, back in our day, when we were teenagers, there was not anxiety, and we didn't have these other
Nobody was talking
words.
about it.
Nobody was talking about that. I don't even know if there's a peanut allergy in there. You know, like, where'd peanut allergy come from?
Exactly.
So I'm wondering how you were able to access so many layers in fear in this role. Without maybe having had that verbiage. Did you have to learn that?
Yeah, I think. Oh man, fear. I mean, he's just so. This is I think the big difference. I think I'm communicating this right, but like, fear had more of what is happening, and anxiety was more of what could happen.
Okay.
So fear, what I was playing was what was in front. Like, there's this great bit in the trailer where there's a sarcasm, and there's a huge chasm in the earth, and they call it sarcasm because a character will go, and we're so glad you're here. They'll scream it to somebody else, but it's heard on the other side is like, oh, we're so glad you're here, because of the chasm.
Yes, I
and
saw
fear
that.
comes up, and he goes, what is this? You know, and it's interesting because it's only fear reacts to what's actually there. Whereas anxiety comes along and it's like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And what's going to happen? And this, you know, creates all these narratives of what could happen.
Right.
Because I have to be honest, when I came in, I was like, I didn't see the difference between fear and anxiety. Like, I think those are kind of put together a lot. But after doing this, there's a very strong distinction. You know, it's like fear does have that, oh my gosh, that happened. Whereas anxiety is all these what ifs that we can live in.
Which I have to say, as a teenager, is so tough.
Very tough.
Right?
Very tough.
As a parent, experiencing your teenager like this, there's so much that's come out that I wish I had when my kid, forget about me, you know, like, forget about us. Our teenage years are long gone. If we remember them, great.
Yeah, exactly.
But for our kids, there's so much stigmatism. There's so much that they feel bad about or embarrassed about or are afraid to do. And obviously you talk about this a lot, I'm sure, but it's like, and the trap of social media. Yeah. I mean, it's just because because I don't want to always bash it, because I find myself always bashing it. Bashing what?
Social media.
Okay.
Even though I'm on it, you know, because my work, and I sometimes I have to put that out there, like the projects and stuff. But talk about the comparison trap. Yeah. I mean, of just, and everybody's only putting their best foot forward. I mean, it's a highlight reel. Yeah. But even though we know that, even though I know that, as a 53-year-old man, I know that, I still fall into the trap as a 53-year-old man, much less a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid who might know that. You think even more is going to fall into the trap that this is real. And that's what freaks me out the most. Yeah.
Is there social media in Inside Out too?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the movie yet.
Okay. But as your character Fear, are you responding to any social media?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
I'm sure there's some kind of reference to it, but I don't know. Yeah. Gosh, amazing. That's a good question, because I haven't seen it. I remember when I did Toy Story, it was, this is interesting. When I did Forky and Toy Story, and I was so convinced I was going to be replaced, because with voice acting, if the voice isn't working, they can just swap out the voice.
Right.
It's not as difficult as like live action where you can't do
that they have to reshoot it.
And I was like, oh, someone's going to take over this voice. They're going to get some, much more famous person than me to swap out the voice. And it wasn't until I heard my voice in the trailer that I knew that, oh, they kept me in. So then it was like a month before I saw the movie and I was like, this is amazing. But like for months leading up, I was like, oh yeah, Jack Black's going to come in and take it over.
But why did you think they were going to take it over?
Just because I've worked in animation and I did a show, this Archibald show for so many years. And I know that, and I get it. Like if you're doing a story and something about that voice is not matching the animation that has been created, I get it. Like we have to find the voice that matches the image. And so, here's this little spork of a character that, if my voice doesn't match, they can easily swap that.
Right. I think that's a good lesson when you're anxious about a project or nervous about something.
Yeah.
I always tell my kids this, and maybe you can relate to this, is it may not happen. What are you worked up about?
Yeah.
It may not happen. The curtain on the Conan show, it might not open. And then what, Tony?
Yeah. And that's I think that's a really great thing, because I think it's the opposite, where people try to create these things of like, you're going to be fine, it's going to be great. The truth is, it might not happen.
Yeah.
And things might not work out.
Right.
And then you have to think about how you're going to handle that, how you're going to bounce back.
Right. And you're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay. Yeah.
I can remember one time being in front of something as I'm reporting, and I can't remember exactly. Well, it probably happened many times. So let's just say there were a few times once or twice where information came to me, because a lot of times when reporters are out there, they don't have information. They'll be standing in front of something, and they'll say, Alita, go stand in front of, on the corner of Melrose here, and we'll give you the information when you get there.
Yeah.
And you trust that information is coming. But the cameras turn on sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're waiting for the producer to give you that information. I mean, you're seconds before, and that's where this podcast, 10 Seconds to Air, came from, where you are thinking 10 seconds to air. Yeah. Hey, can you, what do you got? What helicopter's up? What am
5 seconds have passed.
Five, Alita, 4. What do you got? Do we have anything?
Yeah.
And silence.
Yeah. And so I mean, I know you've talked about this, like, what did you do?
Now you're asking me.
Because I mean, that's terrifying. And it gets back to my control.
Right.
Of like, I like things controlled. So what did you do?
Well, what I learned the hard way of getting out there and being like, wow, I don't have anything, is you don't need to talk too fast, because then you're using words that you're giving away too much information. That's why you see a lot of news people out there. They appear very poised and under control.
Yes.
But what you do is you just explain what's going on around you. You end up becoming an observer of everything. And so, as a journalist, as a TV journalist, your job is to communicate with what's happening around you and making that connection to people at home. So you really learn to observe everything that's happening around you and to not worry about it. They're not seeing, if there's nothing there to tell them about, there's something to tell them about. Well, we don't know what's going on right now. We know that, and it's okay to say that.
So you're truthful about.
Very truthful.
Yeah. That's a great lesson. Because rather than, probably what you see a lot is covering.
Yes.
And that people can kind of see probably right through that. I do have a question about.
Wait a second. What's going on?
I know. But it's like, is it fascinating to me when I hear reporters, the rhythms of speech is the same.
Is the same.
Yeah. It's a newscast, and da 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 ba ba ba.
Yeah.
Ba ba ba. And I don't know if my question is, did that start back decades ago and somebody caught on and then kind of started this and da da da?
Well, I will tell you, if you watched some of my old reels, you would see that, but you would also not see that.
Sure.
Because depending on what the story is, much like acting, you should be changing it. What ends up happening is information comes in late and scripts come in late. Or they haven't read them before, or they're similar to something else. And so they do get into this rhythm because they need to put a period on it.
Yeah.
And they not exactly sure what's coming next.
Oh, that's interesting.
As you're seeing the teleprompter, you see like 3-4 lines. So you do get into a rhythm because you need to end on the right note just in case something else is coming
That's really,
next.
I'm so glad you said that, because it actually gives me compassion for that.
Yeah.
Because it's also, as an actor, you're given the material and you have time to understand it and kind of have a connect with it. If you're not given that time, you almost, I would think you would almost have to kind of grab a hold of a rhythm that is comfortable to relay the information because you haven't had time to connect with it. Maybe?
Yes, that's true. So you do get into that rhythm because you're not sure what's going to come next. And you're also not sure, am I delivering something really tragic right now? I mean, I can't be on a high if I'm telling you something horrible that just happened. So you do find kind of a middle ground that is acceptable for whatever it might be. But, think about when they toss to weather, or, when they get to sports. There's a lot more fluctuation in that because there can be, because they know it's lighthearted, or they know, so they're safe there. With that kind of fluctuation.
Oh, that's really interesting.
But if you're, hosting a parade, let's say, or something, there should be more fluctuation. But sometimes there can't be because you're not exactly sure what's coming up.
And you're probably so used to that rhythm, I would think.
You're used to that rhythm, and sadly, news doesn't have a lot of good. It's not often that they're giving you good news. So.
Oh, which I just think would be hard. Just having to listen to those stories day in and day out.
Well, it is. So that's when you see the puppy stories that come in, or the animal stories. And it's like, let's throw an animal story in before we get to weather. Something like that. Okay, so back to you. Let's flip this back around now.
Back
to me. You also have another project coming up. You were out of town last year in Italy, right?
In Italy
a long time.
for 6 months. And I shot a show called the Decameron, which will be on Netflix in July. And it's based on the Decameron story from like the 14th century, and it takes place in the Black Plague. And it's just it's a very dark comedy about this man who they were going to, everything, the Black Plague's happening, and this man invites all of his wealthy friends to come to his villa to live out the plague. Come to find out, that man dies of the plague, and I'm the head servant, and I have to take over and kind of appease everybody and, cue codependency. Very good at it. Tap into that. And so it was just a blast. And I was in Italy for 6 months, and it was great. And the Italians are very funny people. Yeah. Their artistry is beautiful. One of my favorite stories is there is this wardrobe designer named Claudio, and really great guy. And I had to wear this kind of like servant Renaissance, kind of, not Renaissance, but like 14th century outfit, and I have this belt, and I said, Claudio, can you tighten this belt? And he goes, no, you have an odd shape. And I said, Claudio, and he goes, you do, you have an odd shape. And I was like, all right,
elaborate on that.
They're blunt.
What does that mean?
I know.
So that's a dark comedy?
It's a very dark comedy. Kathleen Jordan wrote it, who did Teenage Bounty Hunters on Netflix, and she's just a very good writer and a very, very kind person. And so, I was in Italy for 6 months. I was away from Martel and Loy, and we were back and forth. And when that happens, you're just hoping to find people that are kind of lighthouses that you can kind of hang with. And Kathleen and her husband, Stephen, were just such a gift to me during that time. So that was great. Yeah.
Is all of this, Beyonce, Italy, everything, is it all that it looks like from the outside?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things to talk about, and I feel like I talk about it too much, but so I apologize if people have heard it. But
we haven't heard it here before.
Okay. I did this when I did Arrested Development years ago. That was my big thing. Getting a sitcom was everything I ever wanted. And when I got it, it didn't satisfy me the way I thought it was going to satisfy me. And it really scared me. And it taught me that I had not been present for most of my life. Whether it was through fear or whatever, I was always looking ahead. And I was also always looking into other people's lives. I was like, oh, they have that and they have that and they have that. But I gave getting a sitcom a lot of weight. And when you give something so much weight, you just can't, and you get it, it just can't match the weight you've given it. And so I did this children's book called Archibald's Next Big Thing about this little chicken that gets a card in the mail that says your big thing is here. And he's like, where? And he goes on all these adventures. But every time he's on an adventure, he's like, I got to get to my next big thing. And this bee comes along and the bee's like, you got to just be, man. You got to just be. And then he learns that the card is right. Your big thing is right here. So like my big thing right now is talking to you.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson that I like to say because I was always looking at people who had, you know, the Beyonce experience and the movie experience and the TV experience, being like, oh my gosh, that's everything. And I was completely not present. And I feel like the present moments in my life as I get older are the most powerful. I'm so grateful for the gigs. But it takes work to be present because all that other stuff, it really is fluff if you're not looking around and taking it in and taking the present moments with all that kind of stuff. That's icing and it's fun. But as I get older, it's the simple stuff that has the power, you know, I like to say that because it's, in this business, people will say, you have value when you have this. You have value when you get the Beyonce gig, when you get the TV gig, when you get the movie. And it's just not true. The truth is, I told this to students the other night, your value right now is going to be the exact same value if in 10 years you win an Oscar. Your value doesn't change. And I think that's the lesson I love to talk about, that I'm myself waking up to.
If this person that you are now knew all that, how would that have changed where you were for Buster or even before that?
I think it would have. It's a tricky question because it's going through that stuff that has made me where I am. And I would never, ever give any of that up. Yeah. It was hard, but I would never give any of that up. So I don't, but what it would do is, this sounds gross. I would have had a better time. Yeah. I would have had a better time because it would be an unveiling of things and surprise and enjoyment of them and connection with people rather than this circle of expectation and, you know, disappointment and all that kind of stuff because of my own giving things too much weight, if that makes sense.
So what do you do when you're not with Beyonce and
I know. I talk like we're best friends. We like work together on one day, and she's lovely. What do I do? I mean, Wait,
can we just hold on that for 1 second? Do you think that she was there in her dress, you know, changing 9 times, and she was going like, "Hey, where's what's his name?"
And then they started to go, "He's at craft service," and then she said, "Yeah, figures."
Where is he anyway? Is he changing 9 times? No,
exactly.
He's eating jelly beans in craft services.
Pretty much. Like my wife and I, we had friends over for dinner last night, and I like to cook. I think you hear this so much, but I think I'm just super boring, and I'm also not much of a traveler. I don't really like to travel. Probably because I was an Army brat, or with work I have to leave. I mean, I'm just as happy going to like a mall in Kansas and hanging out with my friends than I am like going on some international trip. Okay. I just love being with friends, and I'm excited because we're gonna be, when my daughter graduates, we're gonna be moving and seeing our family a lot more down south, and being here, being in New York, you're not around a lot of friends with history. And so being able to go down to my high school and see old friends, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, Tony, what, if any, advice do you have for those people out there who haven't quite yet made it, maybe, who are still looking into the future? I know you did say, you touched on enjoy the moment right there.
Sure.
But anything else that you want to mention?
Yeah, if it has to do with acting, I think that value is a big thing, that just recognizing your value is, your personal value is not going to change. But also, I would say, don't look to New York or LA as the meccas of where you need to be. When I'm talking to kind of young artists there's so much power in looking around you and taking advantage of opportunities around you. Because as you know, even with getting experience on the field and journalism and stuff, the more comfortable you can get in doing things around you on stage, in front of the camera, then when whatever does happen down the road, you have a base of comfort that you can just ease into it, rather than jumping into, a huge ocean of opportunities and you're like, you haven't had the experience yet. I think that's a really, really big deal. And another thing I tell people is, before investing in your quote career, invest in your community before you invest in your career. Because when I was in New York, I had a really solid group of friends that, God willing, I just really found a really strong group of friends. And with the amount of rejection in this business, when you do not feel seen, when you're just in a sea of people that look and act exactly like you, having that community, having those friends that see you beyond how the industry sees you, that's what kept me going. That's what gave me longevity. And having that community and that foundation was everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is so hard.
It is.
And you do have to move around a lot. I moved around a lot too.
Yeah.
And finding that community and finding
everything.
your people is just, it's a safe space. And
It is.
It's
a
what
life
really
force.
matters.
Yeah.
It's what really matters. Tony Hale,
Hey.
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this
So
was
fun.
great.
It was really
All
fun. Thank you.